I don't resent the medication anymore. But for years, I felt like, ugh, why am I taking you? You are literally making me unhappy. You are making me a worse version of myself. This is not fair. Then I have to remind myself that for every hypomanic episode I've had to pay for it times, 10. The depression is so not worth the mania. Even though at the moment the mania feels so much better, the depression is so much longer and so much worse.
Welcome to Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan. This show is about making the world a more loving, accepting, and compassionate place, one parent, one person, and one child at a time. The key to raising healthy and engaged kids is for parents to seek the same in their own lives while striving to be the best versions of themselves each day. No matter who you are or where you came from, with increased awareness, you can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint for your children, your family, and all those you care about, while living your own life to the fullest. Today's show is She's Got Issues with Jill Smokler. Jill is a New York Times bestselling author and entrepreneur who became an authentic voice for millions of imperfect moms through her Webby Award-winning blog, Scary Mommy. Launched a long time ago in 2008, Scary Mommy began as a chronicle of Jill's stay-at-home days with her children and quickly transformed into a vibrant community of women brought together by a common theme: parenting doesn't have to be perfect. Over the next 8 years, without advertising dollars and on a shoestring budget, Jill and her team provided the destination for high-quality, humorous, that is key, and shareable parenting content. In 2015, with millions upon millions of followers, 3 books, and the top parenting site in the country. I'm doing this to make Jill feel really uncomfortable.
I love it.
Yeah, she became the first mommy blogger to sell her brand to a media company. And after 3 years there as chief content officer, she departed. And after a much needed break, she returns with her new brand, multifaceted brand, She's Got Issues, a brand for Gen X women focusing on the myriad of issues uniting them. Forbes magazine named Jill a top 10 parenting influencer, and she has been a featured guest on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Nightline, Fox and Friends, and countless other media outlets. That is a mouthful. I had to say it all because it's so impressive. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm embarrassed because I realize I wrote some of that verbiage, and God, it's kind of obnoxious being read back to me. So
well,
I might have to read
that. That's often the experience that I find. And when I'm going through it, I always struggle with cutting the stuff which I think is so important. So I know it's uncomfortable to sit through it, but I felt it's important for everyone. I mean, most of our listeners, I am sure, know who you are. And for those who don't, they need to know who you are because you, and I know you hear this a lot, but you literally were the pioneer of this field, which didn't exist. Like this whole parenting, mommy, blogging, which now podcast, I mean, so much, but you really started it without knowing you were starting anything.
Which, now that I'm starting something intentionally, starting something accidentally is a far easier way to do it.
with planning.
Yeah, exactly. When it just sort of happens, that's the best way to start a business. But no, it was born out of my need at first really for a hobby and just sort of taking a swing at trying a blog because why not? And then quickly became the community that I needed myself. And, turns out I wasn't the only one, fortunately.
You certainly were not. And when I became aware that we were going to do this interview, I had all of these flashbacks because my wife used to share all of your stuff with me. And our kids we're between right now 20 and 24, our 3, and I know that you're just one tick below. But
exactly. We were in the
we were in the grind though when you were in the grind, and
yep.
And the refreshing thing, so this was at a time, if I recall correctly, Facebook was exploding and everyone was just showing how perfect their lives were. And my wife and I are like, oh man, like ours are not like that. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of a shit show at home.
Yeah.
most most of the time with these three born in a, intense people, sensitive people born in a very short window of time. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden your voice was out there, and it was like you were saying the things that we were all thinking and we were all saying. And I say we, but I know it's a scary mommy, but I felt in it with you as a involved dad as well.
Oh, I love that. And it wasn't, it really it wasn't just me that you were resonating with. It was this whole swarm of women along with me who were the bloggers and the voices behind the brand.
Yes,
And
yes,
that was what was so cool about it. Was it graduated from just being me and my singular voice about my little experience about motherhood, into something that was so much wider than that.
yeah, yes. So yeah, thank you for broadening it to all the people who contributed, and it became, we call it a brand. But I think that's the business language for it, because I don't know what the right word is. It became a space to me. Like it
Hmm.
became a space of honesty, and where you could just say what's really going on. And again, I think
Yeah.
at a time when perfection, and we know with social media, and I know that you don't like it much, like me as well. Like it still reigns, like social media reigns, and what's often being put out there is these unobtainable, unrealistic um, things about life and about
Yeah.
parenting and about being human. And it's just so nice that we're getting I think, a movement towards authenticity, rawness, and transparency.
I think so too. And I think these days you have either the picture perfect portrayals or you have sort of the disaster, reality, but scripted sort of disaster, not really the authentic what it's really like in the
Mm.
grind. Just sort of like the flops and failures. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's all there.
Well, and you're continuing with She's Got Issues. I mean, you're putting it right out there, and it's just kind of like we all have issues.
Oh
and
yeah.
and on the podcast, and now the new magazine, which congratulations.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like that's been something that you've been wanting to do for a long time. It You're putting it out there still with your guests, and I mean the topics from divorce to grief to money to sex to cannabis to psychedelics to intimacy, menopause, perimenopause, like all of the, like, 1 decade later, right, or 1 to 1.5 decades later, like life keeps
Yep.
happening, and these raw and authentic conversations that you're putting out there with amazing people continue to relate to the regular person out there just trying to be human.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That means a lot, truly. And yeah, I feel like my audience and my community has grown up along with me, and it started out, in the muck of little kids when, my biggest problem was that I forgot it was pajama day and I sent the kids to school in pajamas on a day when it wasn't. Oops, little funny, you know, mishaps. And She's Got Issues is much more, me with the kid elements taken out. I mean, I have older kids now, so they're definitely a part of my life and a part of the larger brand, but it's more, looking at ourselves at this point.
Right.
And once we are empty nesters and it's not, our life is not all focused around the kids, what else we're struggling with. And when the stuff is involved, revolving around the kids, how to do that, because it's so different with
Right.
older kids and so much more complicated than it was with little ones. I long for the days of little ones because it was just so easy. Every decision was that seemed so complicated was just, pretty
Right.
simple.
Well, it was I, in my experience, it was so hard, and yet in contrast to grown up kids and growing up kids and teenagers, you just like, okay, I would take back the physical exhaustion for the now emotional and psychological exhaustion.
Yes. I absolutely, and it's as exhausting as that physical, drain is, and having three, as little bodies hanging on you
Yeah,
all the time. Now I'm like, I try to attack my kids for some affection,
right.
like
Totally.
bribing them. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, as that, country song, "The Last Time for Everything," right? No one gives us the memo when all of these things just end. They just one day,
No.
incrementally, they just for each child, they just, "Yep, no, you're done reading to me," or, "Yep, you're done, hugging me
Yes.
and kissing me goodnight," and it's like, "Wait, what?
You're
Wait."
done smelling good. Like, I just
Yeah.
didn't appreciate that one last sniff.
Yeah, it'd be so nice to have, like, I don't know, like a 1-month transition point, right? So we could just
It really
just
would.
appreciate it.
It would, because then
Yeah,
in the worst of things, at least it's, coming to an end. This phase is
yes,
not gonna last forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when did I'm curious about, because I think that you sharing yourself as you do, to me, is really courageous, and people look to you to be this honest, authentic person, which from, watching a lot of your interviews and listening to a lot of your stuff, I just feel like you really do embody, like, you truly show up as who it seems to me who you are. Is there a line? Like, do you, because you're talking about really more and more really personal things. Do you think about, okay, I want to share this, but maybe I shouldn't, or oh gosh, I maybe did a little too much there. Like, do you have a
Oh,
guidepost?
yes.
Yeah,
And I've definitely moved beyond that guidepost.
yeah,
But at this point, I feel like there's so much of me out there that there's very little that I can hide, which
right.
is kind of liberating. But yeah, I think, especially with my divorce and the fallout after it, I think I was a little more open than I
Mhm,
wish I had been in
mhm,
retrospect. But I'm I'm just naturally someone who really doesn't have very many boundaries and likes talking, and so I
mhm.
just I mean, that's sort of just what I do, is like talk without a filter. And yeah.
I think it is liberating. I imagine it being liberating. It's like when you don't have secrets, um, or like if we're not feeling protective of these things. When I think of secrets, I think of shame, right? I
Mhm.
think of the shame that people carry about these aspects of themselves that we don't want people to know about us because, we feel badly about ourselves. And when they're out there, or you just feel like, you know what, I don't have anything to hide. I it seems like it is psychologically liberating.
Um, it is. That being said, I'm not like dancing naked in my backyard celebrating all the time. It doesn't
Right,
quite feel like that.
right.
But yeah, I think it is nice to. What was so wonderful about Scary Mommy the whole time was that it was so authentic to me that I never had to question, like, oops, is this the right tone? Am I portraying the right thing? It was just whatever my gut reaction was. Like, that was
Mhm.
what we did, because it was just whatever I was comfortable with. That's what the brand was. Which which was a really good thing for me, because if I had to be calculated in any way, I would not have been able to sustain it, because it's just
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
who I am.
Mhm.
That being said, are there lines? I won't talk about my kids,
Right, right.
their specific lives now. But I really, the stuff that I don't really love addressing, I am. And I think that's what's so relatable. That was always what was so profound about the blog, was when I would really open up and share, just either how insecure, or what I was struggling with. That's when people really responded and really,
Mhm.
rallied and gave me the most support.
Right,
And
right.
I certainly find that now. But yeah, it's not always easy, but
Yeah.
it's usually worth it.
Yeah, and you're bringing up an important point about the hardest things that you share are often the things that are the most helpful
Mhm.
to people. And I had my own experiences with in my training as a psychologist when I was coming through was really, no self disclosure. It's all about the client, and which it is all about the client.
Mhm.
But I found as I was getting older and had more life experience and doing a lot of parenting work and having being in the trenches, there seemed times that it was relevant for me to share an experience with the mindset of I think this will help my client for what we're dealing
Mhm.
with. And when I would give talks, I'd start to do that too. And and I got some of the older people in the field were like, that's sharing a little too much. But time and time
Mm.
again, and then eventually in a book writing this stuff, and my publisher was like, they're gonna think you're kind of nutsy if you share this.
Mm.
And he's a wonderful man. He was older generation. And I'm like, what I'm finding is people are saying the most helpful thing they hear is when I'm actually real and give them a life experience and a lesson that I learned or that I'm dealing with that relates to them. And it was this whole
Yeah.
shift for me of like, as long as we can keep, well, especially in the field, like some boundaries and be very mindful. Those are the most can be more the most powerful helping and healing moments for people
Yes.
who we're sharing this human experience with.
Yes, and so much of what we're dealing with is so universal, and it is, the things that you're the most ashamed of that you keep the closest to you. It turns
Mhm.
out, everybody else holds the same things close to
Right.
them, and it's so comforting to,
Yes.
yeah, to be shown that.
Yeah. I was just on a long plane ride and watched a few documentaries, and one was on Joan Baez. And the beginning of the documentary, there was a quote that I can't remember who the quote was, but I thought it was very powerful, which was um, something like people have three lives: their public life, their private life, and their secret life. And this
Hmm. Oh,
documentary,
that's interesting.
yeah, it was very powerful. And this documentary, she is when she was 79. I think she's like 82 or 83 now. Um, and it was about her whole life and a lot of parts of her life that, probably only certain people knew about until this
Hmm.
wise, brave change maker put herself out there. And I'm just bringing that in right now because to me, it was inspirational for her to share and process and it teaches people from what her life experience has been.
Hmm.
And I just feel like I think people get the same thing from you as I've been listening to your episodes about like real stuff. And then it makes me question, why are we so afraid to talk about these things that are universal? I mean, most of the time universal. Not everyone, okay, not everyone gets divorced when because their spouse comes out, but a lot of people do, and because you
Yeah.
talked about that, you're helping so many people, and the list goes on and on. So why do you think we are programmed not to talk about these tough things?
Well, I mean, I think I'm not the best example to be speaking to that, because for 10 years when I was running Scary Mommy and I was putting out, all of this authenticity, I did have a secret life, and it wasn't, it's too complicated to get into here now, but
Mhm.
there were elements of my marriage that were very dysfunctional that I knew. And yeah, I held that very, very close. And I felt
Mhm.
very fraudulent being as authentic as I was in so much of my life, but still
Right.
having this like little bit of a secret life too. And it's nice not to have that anymore.
From listening to that episode, with your friend, and colleague who,
Mhm.
talked about the subject, what I would say what I learned from that is this is why I want to come to your defense, is when you're in a situation like that, you're trying to make sense of it. Like there's one thing about talking about something that you're processing, and then there's a whole nother thing when we are trying to actually figure out what is going
Yeah.
on in our life and we're not it, Sure.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that fair for a piece of?
No, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and when you have little kids, you're just sort of in survival mode, and you're like, none of my friends are having sex anyway. Everybody's,
Right.
kind of
Right.
lukewarm at the moment about their spouse. Like, it just sort of felt like everybody was sort of muddling through this, tough stage, and relationships were
Hmm.
suffering
Yeah.
left and right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then moving on to the other tough topic that you shared, which I think is so helpful for people to hear, is your fairly recent mental health diagnosis.
Hmm.
And and I feel like this is such an important topic, not only because as we continue to destigmatize the spectrum of human characteristics and which everything is on a spectrum, but how many people go through life with some aspect of them which flies under the radar, or we white knuckle it, or we only know who we are. Like we don't have any
Yeah.
idea who we like compared to anyone else. We just see things. And then how now with this new lens, first of all, like living without a label, and then how is it fair to say how helpful an appropriate label can be to help make sense of parts of your life?
Hmm. An appropriate label. I'm trying to properly answer this, and I think I'm struggling to understand it in order to
So
do
let me say
that.
diagnosis.
Sorry.
Diagnosis.
Yes.
So
Yes.
diagnosis.
So I was diagnosed as having bipolar disorder, which came after. So my marriage combusted. I sold Scary Mommy and left it, and then everything kind of just I pretty much just like had a mental breakdown. Like
Mhm.
everything, I was so burnt out from work, and I was so strained in my marriage, and I was in New York working part time, and everything was just so bad. And I had a series of like physical ailments that were troubling, and then I just kind of had a manic episode, which I'd never had before. I didn't sleep
Mhm.
for like 7 days,
Wow.
and then became this magical creature who could do absolutely anything
Yeah.
and rule the world. And
Yeah.
it was the best
I was
feeling
gonna
I'd
say
ever
that
had.
I hear that feels really good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't imagine there being a better drug. And the fact
Mhm.
that, like, you have it inside of you, and you have to like be medicated to keep it from coming out, and it's like this magic superpower. It frustrates me daily. And it's so bizarre because I had streaks of mania and depression throughout my life, but it had never I never kind of got to that point where everything just cracked.
Mhm.
So it was a comforting diagnosis to feel like, okay, at least I'm not, I mean, I want to say crazy, but at least, it's not literally is in my head, but, at least there's a
Mhm.
reason why I am feeling this way.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's it. It's something that I'm still learning how to cope with. And, yeah, just
Mhm.
it's taken the last couple of years for me to figure out, like, okay, I have to take my medication at this time. You can't play with your dosage. You can't think that
Right.
you know more than your
Right.
psychiatrist does. But yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
definitely learning where this is concerned.
Well, and by way of for our listeners, just for educational purposes, bipolar is used a lot, and it's not a one size fits all. And so there
Right.
is bipolar one and bipolar two. Because people want me listening, like, wait, you're in your 40s, and it's the first time that. And so I've heard you talk about that you're diagnosed with bipolar two. So for everyone, bipolar one is usually what people think about in mainstream of bipolar, which are, I mean, some of the symptoms that you experienced with that manic episode,
Yeah.
but you can't miss it. So with bipolar one, there's often huge mood swings, um, and dropping of impulses and people doing things they normally wouldn't do,
Yeah.
shopping sprees, other things. Like if you can't miss it, and often ends up in a hospital,
Yeah.
which is the other. Bipolar 1 often ends up in a hospital. Bipolar 2 is a more muted form. And as you and your friend had talked about, and there's a lot of depression in there in bipolar 2, like more than the actual high mania, which sucks because the mania is the stuff that feels good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always tip to the point of recognition,
Yeah.
except patterned over time, or like after a lot of sleep deprivation, it can break through. So a lot of times people with bipolar 2 don't get diagnosed. They don't have this awareness till
Yeah.
much later in life.
Yeah. Because you just sort of think it's sensitivity. It's,
Yeah.
just normal mood fluctuations. But yeah, it's definitely more extreme than that. Yeah. And honestly, I've been in this depression slump for the last couple of months.
Mm,
And yeah, I really appreciate your introduction because it's when you're not in that place, when you're like positive and optimistic and happy, it's you
right.
just sort of forget that you were all of those things. So it was
Yes.
really nice to
Okay.
hear
I'm
that.
glad it was. Yes. Okay. That makes it all worth it.
Hmm.
Since if we could just go a little farther with this, because I think this is so helpful. You brought up medicine, and it is often a people often have a conflictual relationship with medicine, particularly people on the bipolar spectrum, because when you've dealt with a lot of depression, the mania, or the hypomania, as we call it, that don't reach those really high highs, but feel really good, like that's the good stuff. And then you're supposed
Hmm.
to take medicine, which takes that away. So there, ambivalence is the
It
word I
feels
was
so
looking for. Like
wrong.
it, yeah, yeah. So how has that process, if you don't mind me asking, how has that process been for you? Because it's such a normal process in my experience.
Yeah. Well, I learned a hard lesson about 6 months after my diagnosis when I got a little cocky with my medication. I didn't stop taking it exactly, but I would just sort of be lax about when I'd take it and then I'd forget. And I figure, well, I'm not going to double up, so I just won't take it for 3 days in a row. And I just got really
Mm,
lazy about taking it. Now I have a pill box that I fill every Sunday, and it's very habitual, and I don't resent the medication anymore. But
mhm.
for years, I felt like, ugh, why am I
Yeah,
taking you? You are literally making me unhappy. You are making me a worse version of myself. This is
yeah,
not fair.
yeah,
But then I have to remind myself that for every hypomanic episode I've had to pay for it times 10. The depression is so not worth the mania.
right.
Even though at the moment the mania feels so much better, the depression is so much longer, and
Yeah.
in bipolar 2 it's so much worse.
Yes. Yes. So in process still, right? In
I
process still.
in
Yeah.
process with it all, and I think
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing it. Is not I'm
Yeah.
not in a position with anything where I'm teaching my learnings to a
Right.
community. I'm there, trying to
Yeah.
figure it all out too.
Yeah. There was a time in my life when I was taking medicine for depression, and I hated it. I
Mm,
hated the idea that I needed to take it, and I held out for so long until my psychologist is like, "Dan, you do this for a living. What would you be recommending to someone in your situation?" And I'm like,
right.
"Well, obviously medicine, but
Take the
I'm
stupid
different. But I'm
pills.
different." And I went through a very similar process. Again, I haven't experienced the mania or hypomania, um, but got to a point where it's like, "I don't need this. I'm fine."
Yeah.
And then so there's this experiment, and then you kinda either talk to your doctor and go down, or do it on your own and go down, and when the bad stuff would come back, I felt like in hindsight, those were the things I needed to experience to try to figure out what I needed at the time, because when it comes
Mm,
back, you're like, "Oh gosh, just give me the medicine because I don't wanna feel like this is terrible. What was I even
right.
thinking?" So it's a definitely it can be a tug of war.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
definitely is. Yeah. But either way, depression's the worst. So
It sucks.
trying to
It
get out of
sucks.
that place is
Yes.
imperative.
It sucks. And again, I'm glad for people listening, when you're in a depressive state, you might be thinking like, how does Jill not remember who she is and what she's accomplished? And there you go. Like that is what depression does to us. It takes away our sense of ourself. It takes away um, our how we see possibilities, how we see joy, how we
Hmm.
it like changes our perception. It literally changed our perception of ourself, of others,
Hmm.
and the world.
Hmm.
And it is magical when we get it back. And so
Yes.
I just want to keep pushing that out there for you and for everyone. It's like it's right on the other side. It sucks, but it is right on the other side. And the guidance that I was given when I was in it, and the guidance I give my clients is we have to see this as temporary. As terrible as it is, we have to
Hmm.
see it as temporary because it's this neurochemical process that it's working
Hmm.
itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not, when you're in it, it feels so hopeless.
Yes.
But like you said, it's just, you just need to get to the other side of it. And
Yes.
the other side is there. And I'm speaking to myself as well. And I'm not as low, like my low lows are so low. I'm
Mhm.
not in one of those now. I'm just kind of in a slump that I can't really get out of.
Yeah. Blah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
everything, the world just feels so blah right now.
Mhm.
It feels like
Yeah.
it would feel insincere for me to feel like overly happy right now.
Well, let me validate that. The world
Mm.
yeah, right. Yeah, the world is a
Ugh.
very difficult place. And we
Yeah,
have lots of our fellow humans suffering and lots of things don't make sense.
amen to
Um
that.
so I'm going to like turn here from our depression conversation and the importance of purpose. And because um, depression takes away our purpose, it takes away our meaning. And one of the things that we need to do when we're feeling that way is like fight for that meaning and fight for that purpose. And it seems like she's got issues. The brand, all of it, the podcast, the magazine. Um, is that purpose for you?
It is. Thank you. And that's a good reminder to me because that's what I want it to be. Yeah, I want it to be the thing that I'm when Scary Mommy made me the happiest, it was not once I sold it. It was like 3, 4, 5 years in when things were just churning along. We had an audience, we had a great staff. Everything was like, just felt like it was a great level. And then there was a tipping point and it just got too big and it was out of control and it lost its enjoyment for me.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to be building something that I can. I mean, it's hard to compete with Scary Mommy, but I have, I now want something that will comfort and sustain me as well, for this next chunk of my
Yes.
life.
Yes. So, if I may, I feel compelled to say this that there is no need to compete with Scary Mommy because you created Scary Mommy. It still exists, not in the form that you created, but you created again. And I'm so sincere about this. You created an industry that did not exist that has helped so many, and this new venture is a new venture with similar but different goals, and it already is a success. Like to me, it's apples and oranges. It's to this is what you are creating it, and it's like the second act, but the first act never goes away, and the second act never has to. I don't feel be compared to the first.
God, I hope your audience finds value in this conversation because I feel like this has just been the best therapy session ever for me. So thank you. Truly. That's a really wonderful way of reframing things. Yeah, really. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, God, I'm glad you can take that in because I think for many of us, I'm just going to jump on a limb. Many of us with very high standards and perfectionistic thinking. Like to say perfectionism in recovery. There's this never enough thing that gets us. Like, it's like not enough. And it is enough. Like, I think we just have to keep telling ourselves, like, it is enough. Like, every little thing makes such a big difference with the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And you now are a voice talking about all the stuff. Like, I honestly, when I was preparing, I'm like, I'm just going to listen to a little of this. I'm just going to listen to a little of this. But all of the topics, I know, I mean, I am Gen X, but I'm not a Gen X woman. But I'm like, my wife is. We talk about all this stuff all the time. I'm like, I was
Yeah.
hooked in. Like,
Oh.
you're talking about all of the real things, and those conversations help I mean, I know that you're talking to a lot of peers, but I could just feel like they grow from the conversations, and then all of the listeners who are like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And anyways, I'm repeating, but that's enough. That is more than enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll dig a little. Do you actually have a goal for this? Like, is there a goal? Because in perfectionistic ways, we actually like think there's a goal, but it's totally unobtainable. But it's actually not, it's like something you never can reach versus, yeah, I want to achieve this and have this many this. And, like, where is it for you?
I depends on what day you ask me. Today I want it to pay my bills
Yep.
and make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's my focus right
Nice.
now.
Nice.
I love the magazine you mentioned. That's like my background is graphic design. That's what I truly love doing and like really geek out on. So that I'm having fun with. I'm having fun with the podcast. I'm loving reconnecting with old scary mommy people and peers and all that stuff. So I really, I'm in a position where I don't want to go back to work for somebody else ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely an entrepreneur, and I love this brand, and I feel passionate about the topics. And I don't know. I don't see a clear path as to where exactly I want it to go, but I know that I want it to feel authentic and I want to love it however it evolves. I don't want to let it go and let it turn into some, version of itself that, I'm not happy with and proud of.
All right. Those are great goals, right?
Good.
Those are great goals. Right. Pay for your life, make you happy, and provide good content out there that helps people.
Right.
Like, that's so simple, right?
That to boot.
Yeah. And I just think it's interesting. Like, there are, how I've always done things in business was more like how you do Scary Mommy. Like, there's not really a business plan. It's more like going on like what feels right and intuition.
You'll just wing it.
Yeah. And for all you MBAs out there who are really good at spreadsheets, I appreciate that skill, because there are lots of learning along the way when
someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do that stuff. And yet, I think you look at what you did with Scary Mommy with no plan, and it was based on passion and purpose, and it became. And so I'm a proponent of that. Like, if we can continue to lean in, and of course you have all this business experience now from that experience. If we continue to lean into what's meaningful for us and your goals of, is this making me happy and can this pay my bills? And if they're not, I need to do some adjustments here. I think it just all unfolds.
Well, let's hope so.
Yes.
I like it.
Knocking on wood right here.
Thank you. So am I.
Yes. Okay. So, being a Gen X person, Gen X woman, how would you even describe that? Because I listed the issues related. Is there a way that you can describe what it is being a Gen X woman?
Yeah, I mean, officially, I forget what the years are, but I think of it more as just sort of being in the middle of it all right now. We're the
Hmm.
sandwich generation right now. We
Yeah.
have aging parents coming to terms with that. Our kids are getting older. So I identify with it very much just from a stage in life where I am right now. Perimenopause being a huge one. I think that just is sort of women, middle age,
Hmm.
in general. Gen X wise, I mean, culturally, I think that's our audience really is liking like old movies and references to old songs, just all the sort of old nostalgia that comes along with being Gen X. So that's something that I'm trying to that is one part that doesn't I'm a little bit young on the Gen X side, so some of the older Gen X stuff goes over my head, and
Mm.
that's when it starts to feel like, is this really me, and is this me, or is this who I want the audience to be, and I have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, sort of towing that now.
Hmm. So what is your when you think about the content of the magazine and you think
Mhm.
about your podcast, the content, what are you looking for? What are you trying, like in your mind, what are you trying to put out there to your listeners?
Trying to put out um, authentic conversations on topics that we are curious about and aren't being talked about often enough, or are being talked about in a very clinical way. So I'm trying to approach the conversations in a very, frank, funny, casual, um, easily digestible way,
Hmm.
in a way that I would want to consume it. I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to conversations. So I think that's yeah, what I hope to be offering.
Hmm. And what would you say, what is when I say that, what is scary mommy now? Like with your like,
Oof.
wait, no, but let me say more because I think that could go in a different direction that I don't mean. In the sense of you were scary mommy because your son was in that phase and made up that term, and then it became this huge thing. What is it like? How would you describe that? What scary mommy is with these older kids, right? Like, what is it now?
Hmm. I think now it's sort of the real scary mommy. I feel like scary mommy. It was it was sort of facetious, and then it really became kind of an empowered movement. Like, you had like this badge of honor, like you were a scary mommy, you were gritty, you were like honest, you were authentic, you were sort of in there in the mud. And now I think of it more as like we're in the real world now. Like, we don't have like the little kids to cling to anymore. I used
Hmm.
to talk about, like, I found the most comforting, you know body image salvage being like, kids pile on top of me so nobody needs to see my body, and like we don't have those kids anymore to throw on top of ourselves and hide
Hmm.
under. Like, it
Hmm.
all feels more naked without
Yeah.
the little kids.
Yeah. Yeah, so much less control, or at least we had much more, I guess, control and perceived control when they were
Yes.
younger. And then, yeah, now it's like you not only change from your primary parenting role, um, but you also change with your ability to influence. And it feels, in my experience, like it's almost like it's this exercise in having to learn to completely relinquish control, realizing you have so little.
Ugh, isn't that what it
Yeah.
boils down to?
Yes, I guess we just came to the whole
We solved
meaning.
it.
We solved the whole meaning of life, right? Yeah, yeah. But I think we have involved parents have a hard time coming to that reality, and usually it just the lessons are keep getting put in our face that we have to reconcile it.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Um, how do your kids feel about this latest venture?
They're happy about it. They miss they really benefited from the early days of Scary Mommy. They loved it. I
Mhm.
used to go to conferences and we'd have toys sent to us. They'd get to try things out before they went on the market. They thought that that was so fun. And then there was
Yeah.
a chunk of time where that lapsed and they saw, zero, sort of benefit
Yeah.
from anything. And they also saw a mom who wasn't working for a period of time and was very unfulfilled and
Hmm.
I need work to fuel me. And when I didn't have it for years, I was really in a slump for a while. So I think they appreciate that I'm doing something new. My daughter, amazingly, is at Boston University and she's studying like magazine design and
Oh,
communications
wow.
and
Wow.
following in my
Nice.
footsteps. I'm like, I love
Nice.
this so much. So they're excited about it. They're like, when are we gonna get some stuff? When are we gonna get a trip out of this?
Totally. Totally.
Someday, kids. Someday I'll
Yes.
make it all about you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm sure they are very proud of you.
Well, they're sweet. Two out of my three have read the books, and they were very. They appreciated them.
Hmm.
They. I think it was sort of like a bit of a baby book to them,
Yeah.
which made me happy.
Yeah. Okay, Jill. It's that time for the
Okay, it's
parent.
coming.
There it is. The
It's
parent
here.
footprint moment question. Tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual, as a mom, or even an awareness of your own parents, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your life, your kids, and or others you love.
Okay. I'm going to go with I have a very vivid memory of being at summer camp. I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9. And it was a rainy day, and we watched Free to Be You and Me. And there
Mm,
was a song, parents or people
yep,
with children.
love it.
And I remember hearing it and just having this like profound epiphany. Like, they are like my parents are people, and my mind was blown. And it really just changed the way, and not that I had this very evolved sense of my parents, but I from that point on just was aware that they didn't just come about when I was born. They had a whole life before them that
Hmm.
really fascinated me. And I think going into my own parenthood, I was very aware that they were flawed. They were, they did the best they could, but they were just people. And I think that sort of allowed me to become the type of parent I was, where I didn't feel like I had to do everything perfectly. And I felt, like I was doing the best I could. It was okay. If I didn't have this rigidity or whatever, that I turned out okay. And that I'm just a
Yeah.
person. And hopefully my
Yes.
kids will see that someday.
Yes. Yes. That's so good, right? And that was such a powerful album, and I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
that whole album's so
but
good.
you're so right, that awareness of when we realize our parents are these mortal people and the mixed feelings that go with that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You almost feel deceived. Like, how
Yeah, like,
did
what?
Yes, like,
What?
you
Yeah,
didn't tell me all of this?
yeah.
And I thought
I
I knew you?
Mhm. I remember, um, one of our kids when, my wife they were older, and she came to my wife and said, "What do I do here? What do I do here?" And she said, honey, I actually have no idea." It was like the first time she gave, instead of the like, "Here's
Yep.
what you do." And later, much later, she came back to us. She said, like, "I like honestly thought you always knew." Like, it was like a turning point of like, I
Yeah.
honestly thought like you always knew what to do in these situations. It was like this monumental and important moment, but it's also
Yeah.
like, oh man, things are not what
Yes.
I thought they were. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, and this conversation today, and just sharing yourself as you do. I'll say it again. It is inspirational. It's inspirational for me just to be able to, I don't know, going back to that quote, like our private life, our personal life, or public, personal, and secret life, and like how can we integrate and not have shame and just
Mm.
put out the reality of what we're experiencing and doing, because most others are having similar experiences, and if we
Right.
all
We
can
are
be for each
so
other.
not alone. And
Right.
the things that we feel the most alone about are the things that we aren't. And, we're in such good company if we just start
Yes.
talking about it.
Yes. And that is what you're doing. So tell everyone about where they can find everything about the brand. She's got issues.
She's got issues, the website, the podcast. I'm Jill Smokler on Instagram. She's got issues media. Just Google it and just come find me.
Find her, everyone. You will
Please find me.
not be sorry. So
Thank
keep
you,
it.
Dr. Dan. This was
Yeah.
so seriously, I needed this. And thank you. I really appreciate all of your kindness.
You are very welcome. I'm so glad that we did this, and I hope we can do it again someday.
Oh, likewise.
All right, everyone. I know you're thinking about all the people that you're going to share this episode with, all the people who will feel connected, will feel not alone, will feel human together. Please share. Thank you for bringing all of your wonderful people to our community and for being a part of our community. We appreciate your reviews. They really make a difference. Finally, the last two things I always ask you to do. Try to be that person you want your child to become. There are going to be some tough days. That is human. All you can do is try. And finally, ask yourself that guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Strummer Man, composed and performed by Pro Tunes. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com.